Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and thank you for tuning into this video. So in case you're unaware, there's a 5-issue miniseries that's starting next month called TMNT The Last Ronin. It's going to be done by the original creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, and this is effectively going to be the last Ninja Turtles story. In a similar way that we've had The Dark Knight Returns and Old Man Logan, it's going to take those same tropes and it's going to be set in the future, but there is one question that everybody is asking at the minute. And by everybody I mean the one person that I saw post about it in a group on Facebook. And that question is, which turtle is the last Ronin? So yeah, in case you hadn't heard or you couldn't work it out from the title, there is only going to be one Ninja Turtle that's taken up that title, along with the fact that the preview pages and the variant covers that we've seen also show that 3 of the turtles are no longer actively in the picture. But whoever this last Ronin is, they've got full control over Michelangelo's nunchucks, they've got Raphael's sai, they've got Donatello's staff, and they've got Leonardo's sword. They also don a black headband, so it's being kept intentionally vague as to who this turtle is. And as well, to make it a little bit fun, I've invented betting odds for each turtle so that you can see just how likely I think it is that they will be the last Ronin. So let's just jump into it. Firstly, I am going to immediately discredit any chance that it's going to be that 5th turtle that they've just created. When talking about this project, they did state that this was originally a story that they drafted in 1987 when they were doing the original run of Ninja Turtles, at which point there wasn't a 5th turtle in the picture, and I do also feel that it wouldn't be satisfying to readers if this fabled story about the last ever Ninja Turtle story ends up being about none of the turtles that you've followed since childhood. Now the first true turtle that I'm going to talk about is Leonardo, who's got odds of 25 to 1. But for me, I feel like Leonardo is the least likely turtle to be chosen for this role. But that wouldn't make the video entirely interesting, so there is some evidence to suggest that a leader might still be in the picture. But let me just ask you a question. What's the greatest failure that a leader can suffer? It's losing their team. This mini-series also seems to be quite dark and grounded, so it'd go into a more personal aspect of it. And I feel like dealing with a storyline that's following a leader who's failed his team and he's now having to follow a task out on his own would just really add and enhance this story. I could see that being a really interesting dynamic, even if I do think it's least likely to happen. Additionally, Leonardo always struck me as the one turtle that's always trying to improve themselves and broaden their skills, so he's the most likely to me to be able to master the skills of all those other weapons. And Leonardo filling that position of the leader who has failed, I feel like he'd carry them around as a reminder of what he's lost. So I think more than just being an enticing cool thing, the fact that he's got all the weapons would actually be some kind of symbolism and a continuing sign of guilt. Next up, we've got Donatello at odds of 10 to 1. I can't really see it being Donatello either. Like, for me personally, I think this would be the least interesting of the 4 turtles to choose. And that's not me knocking Donatello in any way, I just feel like he's the equivalent of the Hulk in the MCU Avengers films. However, I can see it being Donatello more so than being Leonardo, and it's because of the fact that he's such a team player. Peter Laird, the co-creator of Ninja Turtles, also said that Donatello has always been his favourite. Given that he's involved with this project, he might rally so that Donatello actually gets his limelight to shine. And I'm going to give you a massive spoiler warning. I'd recommend skipping forward to the next turtle if you don't want to hear any spoilers for the IDW Ninja Turtles line. But in the IDW Ninja Turtles series, Donatello was the one who died. So we've already seen the story of the other 3 turtles dealing with the loss of one of the brothers, but it might be interesting to see the story of the one turtle who's never lost anybody all of a sudden have to lose everybody. And if they're deliberately keeping the identity ambiguous so that it can subvert expectations, it would actually make sense to choose Donatello because he's often seen as the least aggressive turtle. So this situation would really make him come out of his shell. Classic joke. Gonna have to write that one down in the Guinness Book of World Records for the best joke. Yeah, hey mum, yeah. So I told this joke just, so it's about Donatello, yeah, the Ninja Turtle, yeah. And I said it'd really make him come out of his shell. Yeah, because he's a turtle. Yeah, it was great. Next up, I'm going to talk about the strong favourite, Raphael, at odds of 1 to 2. There's a very strong chance that it's Raphael. If anything, all the signs are kind of pointing towards it being him. From looking at the few preview pages that we've seen, when he's speaking to people, he's quite short and he's quite blunt, and a lot of his idiosyncrasies are also similar to that of Raphael's anyway. And they've mentioned that they want to make this a darker lone wolf type of story, and Raphael within the team has always been the one that's always gone off on his own. He's always just been full of anger, full of rage, and he doesn't really care about the overall verdict of the team. So I know what you're thinking, why aren't the odds even shorter for Raphael? Why is there any kind of doubt within my head? Everything that we've seen so far points to the fact that it'll be Raphael, and that's exactly why within my gut I feel like it's not going to be him, because if it turns out to be Raphael, I actually think it'll be a bit of a disappointment. At the moment we don't know if this story is going to be good. We've only really got this mystery of who the last Ronin is, and from the beginning most people, from what I can see, already think it's going to be Raphael. The character already seems to act and behave much in the same way as him, so what would be the point in going to all these lengths to disguise who this turtle is if it just turns out to be the one that everybody thought it was from the beginning? So yeah, even though I've got no concrete evidence to come back to you and say, yeah, I don't think it's going to be Raphael because of this, there's something that just doesn't sit right with me, and it just tells me that it's not going to be the red one. So that leaves us with only one turtle, one last Ronin turtle. And that's Michelangelo, who I've got at odds of 10 to 11. And yeah, on paper it looks like Michelangelo's the least likely to be the turtle who's going to be the last Ronin because he's just so playful in nature, which is exactly why I think he's the most likely candidate to take up this mantle. The benefit of making a story where you jump to the future is that you can change something so drastically about a character and you don't really need all that character development. And there's only one turtle that would really benefit from doing that, and that would be Michelangelo. Possibly you could argue the same for Donatello, but because of the fact that Michelangelo is always the one that needs to be sort of chaperoned and looked after, and that no one has any faith in, and that they can never really rely on him or put the trust in him, makes me think that he would have the best character arc if he was to be the last Ronin. The fact that Michelangelo is Kevin Eastman's favourite turtle just adds to this for me. All the obvious signs are pointing towards Raphael, but I think the subtle, more thematic and storyline based ones are all pointing towards it being Michelangelo. Again, going back to Kevin Eastman, they said that Michelangelo was the first Ninja Turtle that was actually created, so for me I kind of think it'd be poetic if it was that Michelangelo also turned out to be the last turtle that they ever wrote about. So even though I like the possibilities that could come about with Leonardo being in that role, I think the most interesting ones and the kind of like natural hero's journey end to the story would point to the fact that it'd be Michelangelo. Now, just for the sake of being completionist so I don't have to void all bets, there is always the wildcard possibility that it might be none of the original turtles. I've got this at odds of 100 to 1 because I think this would be the dumbest decision that they can do. Do I have any evidence at all to point to the fact that it might be a turtle that we've never met before? Absolutely not. But we had no evidence when it came to The Last of Us 2. And yes, I know that this is still a wound that's raw, but all throughout the build up of The Last of Us 2 they said that Ellie was going to be the only playable character. They kind of teased us with facts that Joel and other characters are going to be in it longer than they actually were. Like, they actually edited footage so that it looked like characters were in scenes when it was just a completely different character. We have been burnt before, and there is always the possibility that it could be some weird storyline that the mutation that affected the turtles actually affected some other kind of turtle, so they became like a turtle that was honouring the 4 turtles that had come before them, or something stupid like that. The fact that I just came up with this idea on the spot proves that there's the possibility that it could also just enter into somebody's head, and that somebody could be somebody working on this story. I do have to say 100% that I want it to be one of the original 4 turtles, or else the story just doesn't really seem to work. It would be an absolutely ridiculous idea, but since he did it with Abby and so recently, I do just have to put this out there just in case we're all heading for disappointment. And I really hope we aren't, because I don't tend to read comics in single issues. I just prefer getting them in a nice collection on my shelf, which is why you can see the beautiful, 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 beautiful IDW collections of TMNT behind me. But for The Last Ronin, I'm so interested in the mystery and the story that they're going to tell that I'm actually going to read this in single issues. I think the last thing that I actively brought in single issues was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, so this is quite a big move for me. So if I had to put money on this, I think I'm going to have to say Michelangelo, despite the odds that I created and could just easily change at any time. I'm a Raphael fan through and through, even though the 2012 series is so good that it makes me like all the turtles equally. But even though he's my favourite, I can see this story being very paint by numbers if it does just happen to be him who turns out to be the last Ronin. I kind of feel like we know how that story will go because we've seen so many solo adventures with Raphael, and he always goes off and does his own thing anyway. The choice that interests me most is Michelangelo, and even though I don't want to live in a world where 3 of the 4 turtles don't exist anymore, I think if I had to choose a one and follow that story, it's definitely going to be Mikey. But we don't really get many mysteries like this before, and I really hope it isn't leaked before the first issue comes out. But comment below with which Ninja Turtle you think is going to be the last Ronin, or which one you hope might be the last Ronin. And none of those odds are legit. I don't have enough money to pay out any bets. But if your bet loses and you wanted to give me the money, then that's okay. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click that bell notification so you never miss a video and you get to become one of the dogs. And share this video with some of your friends or in any groups that you're in, just so we can get a bit more discussion going. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't like this video, why did you get this far? Check out some of my other links. If I ever find any great deals on books, I'll make sure to put them on my Instagram stories. And check out some of my other videos, but more than anything, just stay safe, keep reading, and keep barking all you mad dogs, and I'll see you next time.